Seasons change, but the grit and commitment for some people never changes. We have with us somebody who is committed to uplift the community. Somebody who was an RCMP, the first RCMP officer who was allowed to wear turban, and somebody who has recently been appointed to the Canadian Senate. We have with us Baltej Dhillon. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, not just your professional career, Baltej, but we will also be talking about your personal life, your manifestation, your commitments, your goals, not just professionally, but personally as well. So, you excited?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, let's start with where were you born and how was your childhood?
Sure. Born in Malaysia, now some 58 years ago, 59 years ago, and in a small village called Kampong Pandan, and that's just outside of Kuala Lumpur, the capital city. And, born and raised there. So I never thought I would be here in Canada sitting as a senator when I was born and raised in Malaysia, a young boy, growing up in a small community. It was a wonderful childhood. We certainly weren't from an affluent family or someone with a lot of money. I would say we were poor. And our parents worked hard. They both did. My father worked 2 jobs. But we never felt like we were poor because all of our needs were met. And there are 6 of us in the family, siblings.
6 siblings.
We have 6 siblings, yes, including me. And so, it was the best times growing up in a small home, in a small town, with our friends, with our neighbors, the Gurdwara nearby. It was a wonderful time.
That is, some unique story I'm listening because I usually come across people who are like, because my children of the channel, they're born and raised in India. And now you being a Sikh and, born in Malaysia. And then you have a family who you call poor, but they're not poor because it lies, the definition varies for everybody. Right. And like you said that your father was committed, so maybe you're getting it from them. So what's the one message that your parents, maybe left with you?
So I think they led, for us, their examples, their life was our example. It wasn't anything that they said, but it was more about what they did daily.
So you saw them?
I saw them. Words have impact. But actions are what lives with you for a lifetime because you'll remember what they did every day. You might say something once, but what you do every day and what you commit to every day, that's what stays with you because that's who that person is, their actions. So my father's actions, I call him my first role model. I call him my first mentor.
Absolutely.
He was a humble man, but a man with a lot of grace and pride in who he was. He was kind and compassionate, but he was also clear in his own discipline and principles. And he was very loving. I remember him as somebody that, would nourish us, would nurture us, would want us to enjoy our times and created spaces within which we not only learned but also had fun. But now having lived life, and now I look back and I'm amazed that he commanded such respect for somebody that really didn't have any businesses, wasn't in a high-paying job, any of that. But what he did have was his character.
Like I always say, success is not where you are today. It's where you started from.
Correct.
I think that resonates exactly with what you're saying in your story. So let's go ahead and talk about when you were, when they were raising you, when you became an adult. So you might have some dreams, I want to be this. Like for me, I wanted to be a pilot first. So what were your dreams?
While I was in Malaysia, my dreams in Malaysia were very limited because you couldn't see past anything that was around you. Like you literally were following the footsteps of your parents or others, and the opportunities were very limited. I often say that my father had to pass before we could come to Canada. So he made, in many ways, that was a kind of a sacrifice when looking back. That after his passing, we came to Canada, and it was only because of his passing that we came to Canada, because he was the breadwinner. And so my brother was already established here. And when we came to Canada and we started school here, it was a very different experience.
What was your age?
I was 16 when we came to Canada. But it was a very different experience when I came to Canada at 16 that, as soon as we got into school, of course there was challenges, of course there was racism, of course there was all those issues. But what was different was that immediately the teacher, the school were very focused on having us begin to think about what career choices we wanted to make.
Oh.
So there was already that, nourishing, that nurturing, that support, that question, that guidance, and so on. So early on, I made a decision while I was in high school that I would like to pursue a career in law. And so once I graduated, I went to college, and it was in college that as I was preparing to go to university and applying to law school, that I received advice that it would be helpful to volunteer.
Yeah.
And so I then, sought out the RCMP and asked locally here in Surrey if there was any volunteer opportunities with the RCMP, and certainly there were. They were just starting out a new, program, a prevention program called Block Watch.
Yeah.
And I signed up. I was accepted as a volunteer, and I worked there. And while I was working as a volunteer, and then I worked as a summer student as well, got paid. While I was doing that, I found it very, fulfilling, speaking with the community, working in the community. And I was very impressed by the police officers that I worked with. They found incredible enjoyment in the work that they did, and they were very satisfied with their careers. And so over a two-year period, I made the decision to pursue a career in law enforcement instead of law.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's how the journey began. And so is there any advice that if somebody is looking forward to get into law enforcement, is there any misconception that you think people have related to the field?
Well, I think the biggest misconception is people think that you have to have a, education in policing or public safety or criminology or any of that.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. You only need to be of good character. You need to have a degree of some sort in some higher education. Doesn't need to be criminology. Can be in arts, could be business, could be in science, could be anything. And you must have a track record of serving within the community. So volunteer work is helpful. And life experience is helpful. Life experience comes by working and having a job.
Yeah.
So this is, coming into law enforcement is an important step. It's a very, it's a job, it's a career like none other. And so we're looking for people who are mature, who understand what public service means, have an ability to connect with other people and relate to other people, because that's what they're going to be doing all day long. Because, police officers have a lot of power. And so we want to make sure that that authority is not abused.
Absolutely. I'm coming from, I was born in India, so their police officers are like, what do I say? Everybody's scared of them. Oh, there's a police officer coming, just run away, even though you haven't done anything. So when I came to Canada, I did realize that there's a huge difference in the perception of a police officer. And I proudly, whenever I see a police officer, I can easily say hello to them now. So that has been a change that I've observed in myself. Yeah, so, but you missed on the most important part, Baltej. Your turban.
Yeah, yes.
Do you want to hear that exact story, how it happened?
Of course. So, just wanting to become a police officer doesn't mean you're going to become a police officer. Sure. You have to have a desire, of course. You have to have a dream. So when I decided I wanted to become a police officer, I started to apply. And I applied to all the police departments. I applied to New West, Delta Police. I applied to Vancouver City. Applied to the RCMP because my intention, what I wanted to do was not really be an RCMP officer. My dream was to become a police officer. It didn't matter to me which uniform I wore. And so, and part of the reason why I didn't think policing would be a career that I would want to pursue is because I didn't see anybody like me in policing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody like me there. So I thought, oh, maybe this is not a job for people that look like me. But when I was encouraged by other police officers, I got to work with them. They said that I would make a good police officer. That's when I changed my mind. So I applied. I got through all the tests and exams. And when the time came to, have an offer of an employment, and I was invited to the office, and the recruiting officer welcomed me into his office, told me that I was successful, and he was ready to offer me a job. And with one stipulation that I would have to, shave and cut my hair and remove my turban, which is a very common thing back then, because every police officer that went to Regina or went to training, you'd get a buzz cut there. Regardless of whether you had a turban or not, everybody had their head shaved, and you would get you'd have to be clean shaven. Those are the rules back then. Things have changed. So when I was told that, I said, well, no, I can't. I cannot do that. I cannot sacrifice my identity for a job. A job is not enough for me to give everything that I have. I can't, on one hand, hold my father as a role model and a mentor, somebody that I believed in, and someone with incredible character and integrity, and then in the next moment completely move away from everything that I've learned from him. And this identity, it was a gift from him to me.
Yeah.
So how do I, throw that back at him? How do I abandon? How do I walk away from it? Everything that I was and am is because of my identity. So it's too high of a price. So I walked away. I walked away that day and I said, no, I am not interested in this job. Thank you very much.
Were you aggressive?
No.
No. You were calm.
We were friends.
Because that matters. How you react to the
The recruiting officer and I were friends.
Okay, so you just said that I can move on.
He was lost for words because he was my friend. He wanted me to join.
Yeah.
And he did not know how to help me to join.
Yeah.
Because the policy that he was confronted with would not allow him to do that.
Okay.
I think if it was up to him, he would have hired me on the spot.
Yeah.
And I did not want to disappoint him because he was my friend. And I wanted to do this because, I believed in him as well. I believed in, the work he did, and the importance of that. So I didn't want to disappoint him either. But what was not negotiable was my identity. It was not negotiable. So it was an awkward moment of silence. And I finally said, well, I guess that's it then. There's not much more we can do here, can we? And he said, no, I'll make a note of it and send the file back up that, you rejected the offer. I said, all right. So that was the longest walk, longest drive, longest whatever you want to call it, home. Because this was me having worked very, very hard
To get
there. And then having it within your grasp and then having to let go.
Did you regret on your way back? I don't think so.
No, there was no regret.
Yeah.
There was, doubts. There was questions. There was...
Were you sad? I mean, what was your exact emotion? You were
absolutely. Sad. I was very, very sad. I was not happy that this happened. Coming from Malaysia, where you could see police officers every day wearing their turbans, I knew you could serve with your turban, that there was no issue. No reason why you could not serve. So, absolutely, I was disappointed.
Yeah.
I was sad. I was,
heartbroken.
Heartbroken. Yeah, all of those emotions, right?
So how long was the wait then? I mean, you might have gotten something, because we know the end story. Yeah. So, trying to connect.
Yes, that took a good year and a half before it all got sorted out, and it was within that year and a half that we had a ton of debate in this country, in this nation. It was very painful. It was hateful. A lot of racist remarks. A lot of people said a lot of things about the Sikh community, about me. And there were a lot of things that were done that were not Canadian, And so we went through all of that. We went through that hatred. And the sentiment was that we were trying to change, Canada and a symbol of Canada. And when really the symbol of Canada is our freedoms, not a uniform. If that uniform could not be changed to accommodate the rights and freedoms of the citizens of this country, then we have completely failed what Canada stands for.
Yeah.
Bottom
Exactly. So, like when you were waiting, of course you were not waiting because you never expected any reply back after that. So, what did you do in those years, like that year of hatred, I would say?
Oh, those months. I was working. I was working as a security guard, so I kept on working as a security guard. I went on with my day, and during that time, I also gave a lot of interviews. I spoke to media. I went on TV, radio, and
So
newspaper.
you were all out.
I was. I mean, back then we didn't have social media. We didn't have internet.
Yes. So then,
So everything that, I felt there was a responsibility on my part that I needed to share with Canadians why the Sikh identity, why the turban was important for us, and that this defined who we were. And this was a commitment to our way of life. And that the turban, our long hair, this is all a part of who we are.
So you tried to explain that to the public, and then eventually they changed their product.
Eventually the change came. There was a petition that was drawn up against us. Some 275,000 people came out and signed that petition, not wanting the turban to be included. So there was a lot. There were signs, there was posters, there was pins, there was all kinds of things that were, put out into the community and into the country by people who really were just motivated by a single cause, which was we're not letting these people become police officers.
I see.
So the law had to be changed, and it went to the commissioner. Commissioner made the recommendations to the House of Commons, and it was in the House of Commons that the Solicitor General at the time, Pierre Cadieux, who accepted those recommendations from the commissioner, and that is when Sikhs and other members of other communities, like the Muslim community and even the indigenous communities, were allowed exemptions when there were articles of faith that they wanted to wear. So before we had this issue, even the indigenous community had to cut their braids, which is, to me, just completely mind-boggling that the first people of this country,
they were
also disrespected, and their traditions.
Yeah, maybe that's the reason now they're very much focused on diversity, equality, and inclusion. So this is something that's, has been taken care of now. Maybe that it started there and then
there's
getting better.
Yeah, we've come a long way. I think, the words diversity, equity, inclusion are very common these days, but we certainly didn't know those words back then. We were just simply I was simply trying to get a job, and we were simply looking to be counted as equals in this country. Because unless there is a practical reason why you could not wear a turban to do the job, then there is no reason why you could not wear a turban to do the job. And the same thing with the hijab, same thing with the braids. So this is a multicultural country. This country was built on multiculturalism.
Yeah.
This is a mosaic. This is not a melting pot.
Yeah.
We have people here from every part of the world. In our Constitution and our Charter of Rights, it's entrenched that we are a multicultural country. And we respect.
We respect that. And we need to be respected too.
Absolutely. That is why that's why the world wars took place, is that we were not, enslaved and in any way, shape, or form, our basic human rights were not compromised.
Yeah.
Right?
I see that, you have been under a lot of mental pressure for sure during those times. Maybe you still have sometimes because of your new role. So how do you take care of your mental health?
Yeah. So that's been a journey on its own. So I'm growing up, I had the benefit of having spiritual teachers, guides, and people that helped me, my father being one of them. So I had some practice when I was growing up. It was sporadic. It was not regular. It was not daily. It was whenever I felt like, as I was growing up. Once I joined the RCMP, things got a bit more heavy and hectic. And so it was about midway, I think about 12, 13, 14 years into the RCMP that, my wife started to see a change in me, that I was keeping things, I was becoming depressed and all that.
I see.
And so she then got me signed up for a meditation course over an 8-month period, which I took.
Good.
After that course, I put in place a practice in the past 17 years that I still do to this day. So I sit in meditation for an hour every day, and I don't miss a day without it. So no 24 hours don't go by without me sitting and meditating for an hour. And that's how I look after myself, because in that time is exactly when all of that healing takes place. All of what has happened the day before, all of the things that were troubling me, difficult things, challenging things, I literally take all that and put it into the arms of the universe, and then I start my day new. So all my problems are no longer mine. And with having sat with the universe in the mornings, I also find that the rest of the day is easier, because now it's no longer my day, it's the Creator's day.
And because maybe that's the reason your personality is like, whenever I meet you or people meet you, very humble, down to earth, calm, meet people nicely. I mean, you stand out of the crowd. And I'm not just saying it to say it. And I also remember I emailed you that I want to come and meet you and see you. I was like, this is a different person from the crowd. He talks nicely. He doesn't have that ego or those kind of things. Okay, let's move forward. It was a very interesting story so far. Just last part of it. We want to talk about manifestation.
Sure.
So did you ever manifest this life in some way?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you can call it manifestations. I see it as a life of service. So, and I say this when I speak with students and I go to schools, I say, you have to define what your values are. What are your values? What are your principles? So in our family, we have, an acronym that we use for our values: DING, dignity, integrity, nobility, and grace. That's where everything starts for us. In our life, in our families, our children, we all guide ourselves by those 4 values: dignity, integrity, nobility, and grace. DING. If it's not aligned with those values and principles, we don't do it. We don't go near it. And then the next thing I say to young people is that, what's your passion? What is it that you are looking to do? What legacy are you leaving behind?
Absolutely.
What is it that you want to contribute that is going to support, serve, help others, after you're gone? So, I mean, these are things that, as I sit in meditation, as I sit in that space, have become available to me. None of it is mine. These are just things that have been gifted to me through the Creator and the universe. So I'm just repeating to you what I have been gifted. None of it is mine. And so during that time is where, in the RCMP, I had a number of ideas that came to me through that meditative space that I was able to put in place in support of and in service of public safety. Meditation is not something that's out there. Meditation is right here. Absolutely. And it's a technology and it's a tool to be used to help be better and to help others be better.
Yeah.
So it's in service of others. So if you chase that, and this is why I say to students and those that I have said, we'd like you to be our mentor. And you say, well, here's a very simple process, but one that takes a lifetime. Chase after those things that you believe are going to be instrumental in changing the lives of others. Right? And if you chase that, then the promotions, the appointments, the rewards, the awards, all will come, because what you're doing is noble work.
Yeah.
Work that's dignified, guided by integrity, and is graceful.
Wow. Think.
Ding.
Let's end that. Let's end the video on ding itself.
Yeah.
So we're leaving the audience with a new concept here, ding, that you can follow in your lives. And if you have more questions for Mr. Dhillon, then feel free to comment below, like the video, and subscribe the channel.